practice questions on page 30, determining whether a statement represents a physical or chemical property. So here we go. We're going to take a look at these statements and then think about what we wrote down on the previous page, page 29. So the first I do, water boils. So I think about this term, water boils at a particular temperature. So when I think about what was written down on the previous page, I wrote the term boiling point. And boiling point was listed under the physical. So water boils at 373. We are observing a physical property of water. The next I do, water can be separated by electrolysis into hydrogen and oxygen. So I see the term water, and I'm familiar with how to draw its structure. We have looked at hydrogen before in previous notes. So we have an H bonded to an H. And then I also see oxygen, which we drew before, which is O, and it looks like an equal sign for a double bond between the two oxygen atoms. Now it says water can be separated into, so I'm going to put an arrow, it's pointing to that, into hydrogen and oxygen. So when I take a look at my starting structure and composition, a 2-to-1 of hydrogen to oxygen, it changes into a structure that only has hydrogen in it, and a different structure that only has oxygen into it. So it is showing a chemical property of water. It can be separated chemically into element hydrogen and the element oxygen. Looking at the next I do, it says sugar is capable of dissolving, and that's an important word. So when we are saying, hey, a material dissolves or does not dissolve, we are looking at the solubility of that material. And solubility, being soluble or insoluble, is a physical property of the material. The first we do, vinegar will react with baking soda. So here we go. React is a buzzword. So if it's reacting, that means it's going through a chemical reaction. So that should be pretty easy to pick out that we're looking at a chemical property. The next one, yeast acts upon. So acts upon, that gives me an idea, acts upon sugar to form. And it's forming ethanol and carbon dioxide. Well, carbon dioxide's chemical formula is CO2. The sugar, a common formula that you guys know, is C6H12O6. And ethanol, we'll learn how to draw it when we get to organic, but it's C2H5OH. So when I take a look at this, I see a change in the composition and ratio, where this has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and carbon dioxide only has carbon and oxygen. So a definite change in the composition. And within the sugar, it's a 1 to 2 to 1. And when I look at the ethanol, it's a 2 to 6 to 1 ratio. So acts upon would be another way of describing activity, right? So this definitely must be a chemical property. Last example in the we do section, it says wax will melt. So here's another keyword, and when we listed physical and chemical properties, we identified one property as melting point. So if the substance is actually going through the process of melting, and this will occur at a particular temperature we call the melting point, then, and we listed this on the physical side, so this must be exhibiting its physical process when it will melt. So now you try the you do table below and check your answers with your teacher.